welcome to the Law of Attraction 2.0 Spiritual Straight Talk with G.P. Walsh, longtime spiritual teacher and healer, and hosted by myself, Karen Scarpula, author and forgiveness expert. And today I'm really excited to be discussing the topic of meditation with all of you. If you've been listening to some of our previous shows, this has been a common topic, a common thread through some of our last shows. We've also had a lot of questions from our listeners about meditation, how to do it, how to practice it. So fortunately for me, my co-host, G.P. Walsh, who's an expert in meditation and has been practicing for over 30 years. In fact, G, I think that means that you would have started practicing meditation in grade school, right?
That's correct.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
You're really not old enough to have been practicing that long, honestly. So GP has graciously agreed to be my guest tonight and this evening and to share with us all of his insights and his 30 years of experience of practicing meditation, its origins and practice, and how to implement this into our everyday life. Well, again, I just couldn't pass up the opportunity, especially after last week's broadcast where we were talking a lot about meditation and how to make it part of your everyday life with brain entrainment technology. So I'm glad that you agreed to just take it a little deeper this week. And, again, it's a law of attraction moment. We're giving our listeners the tools to really practice the law of attraction and really do it through meditation. So, G, are you ready?
I am ready.
Great. Well, so I'd love you to kick off the whole discussion by giving us just sort of a brief explanation of meditation. What is it and how does it work?
Meditation is there's a million different ways of describing what it is, and it's been studied scientifically now, since the advent of biofeedback machines and having the instrumentation where they could actually map what's going on in the brain during meditation, which is, it is so old as a practice, it predates everything written.
Mm-hmm.
In the Hindu Vedic tradition. It goes back before language. Which means it's something very natural about ourselves that we discovered. And I think probably the best way to describe it is that in the best forms of meditation, and there are many different ones, and I think I'm pretty certain you're going to have me talk about that.
Yes, exactly.
at some point. But the idea is that you begin to train yourself to focus your attention very, very specifically. And it's a way of quieting what is normally, they refer to it as the chattering mind or the monkey mind, which is always jumping from one topic to another.
Right.
Now, that's a natural phenomena. The reason humans are creative is because of this capacity of the brain for association. I hear a train whistle in the distance, and before you know it, I'm that train coming down. I'm humming songs, and I'm thinking about train rides I took before, and I'm wondering what kind of train it is. And before you know it, I'm not even talking about the train anymore. I'm on to other kinds of vehicles and airplanes and spaceships, right?
Yeah.
It's that capacity we have to associate like that is extremely powerful and has led to creativity in the way that it has. But it's also the thing that gets in the way once that becomes habitual. Once the grooves in the brain don't have any restriction on that, we tend to run off in all sorts of different directions. And what's remarkable about that is that when we do that, our stress levels rise. It actually puts our body into a heightened sense of awareness and a subtle feeling of danger.
Okay.
It's as if we're looking for a solution to a problem that doesn't actually exist. And so the nervous system interprets it problematically. And it will put you into a state of stress. That's actually been measured even more in more great detail lately because of the since the internet and everybody's got cell phones and voicemail and laptop and an iPad and their iPod, and they've got, and we're constantly being interrupted. Our capacity to focus and concentrate is actually getting less, and simultaneously our stress levels are going up. It's a very unnatural condition to be in.
And do you find most people are really living more hours each day in this sort of stressful way? And again, you brought up the internet and all of the outside influences that are bombarding us all day. I see it as our life just has so much more going on in it these days.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And you have to remember that the nervous system is 400 million years old and has been, developing its relationship with the environment in which it's lived for the purpose of surviving for that long, very long time. The higher functions, what we would call the mind, has been around for about 100,000 years. And it's not meant to be constantly shift. It was never designed to have change happening at the rate that it's happening right now. Change used to happen very, very slowly over generations, not, over, 5 minutes or 30 seconds. And as part of the nervous system, part of the brain's function, even the mind's function, is to be interacting with the environment to keep itself safe, right? Okay. So the mind is, in its physical component, is naturally focused outward. It is focused out into the environment where it has to keep its attention, because when you think of us when we were still very quite primitive, living in times that were where survival wasn't as guaranteed as it was now. You were constantly alert in your environment for, something that might think of you as dinner. Right?
Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that much anymore.
We don't have to worry about that. And at the same time, you're also on the alert for that which is going to be your dinner, because it's not like you can, walk down to your local grocery store and buy it. And if you didn't catch something, you didn't eat. Mm-hmm. Right. So that it's very natural for the mind to be focused outside, and who knows how long ago, more than 10,000 years ago, it began to be discovered that same attention could be turned inside, and when you did turn it on the it towards yourself on the inside, the mind acquired the capacity to examine itself, which, when you think about it, is stunning. No other creatures on the planet, as far as we know, can do that. To actually look at yourself as an object, have a sense of separation from it, and actually look at you, how you're functioning, what's going on, how you're feeling, what this means. To even the fact that we can even talk about meaning means we can actually step outside of it enough to look at it to know what meaning even is. Right.
So meditation is really turning your thought process in on yourself.
Exactly.
That's where it starts. Okay.
Yes. And the process then becomes one of this beautiful and deep self-examination, going everything from how do I feel? What are the levels of resistance? What does this particular sensation mean? Why do I react the way I do? The series of programmed responses that happen. What meaning am I attaching to it? What story have I been creating? I mean, it's really quite endless. And part of the process is simply learning how to do that consistently, which is where the idea of concentration and meditation, where most people think of it as just this concentrated, I'm thinking about one thing. But that's actually not meditation. That's concentration, which is a different kind of discipline. It's related, but it is different. Actually, Buddha made quite a distinction between the two of those. But it's part of what needs to take place, because remember, the mind is always going to want to jump off and associate and have its attention drawn outside.
So go back to the beginning. How do you quiet your mind then? So you raised that's where it all starts, is quieting your mind. So what do you do to quiet your mind?
um, the mind, we need to understand what the mind actually is, right? The mind is not an object. The way thinking works is that you have objects, and they can be objects of the imagination, they can be objects of association, they can be generalizations and abstractions, or they can be concrete things, right? That's a tree, that's a bush, right?
Right.
Right. But then I can think of like, that's Bob, that's Jane, right? But then Bob is my friend, right?
Okay.
Now that's a concept. There's no such, you can't point to an object and say that's a friend object, right?
Right. Okay.
Right. It's
relationship.
It's a relationship, and it's abstract.
Right.
I've given a word to define a very complex set of things that have to do with meaning and feeling and relationship and association and how this fits in my life. You can see it's extremely complex,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets summed up in a single word: friend. Now, when that happens, the mind now grabs onto that word friend, right? And it starts making new abstractions out of that. And then it takes that abstraction and makes another one out of that. And then it takes another one and makes another one out of that. And it can go on to the point where you're completely deluded. You have no idea what's really happening. You're completely lost in your story. And turning around and moving back towards the actual experience of your life, the actual content of your life, without the story, without the drama, without the meaning that has been attached to it over time, gets you closer and closer to the experiencing of the truth. Now, the reason I bring that up in answer to your question about it is that the mind is nothing but patterns of thought. There's no mind, right? There's no object somewhere that you can point. Oh, there's the thing that's generating all the thoughts.
Right.
Shut it down. Right? It doesn't exist. This process we have of abstraction allows us to look at thinking, abstract it into an object that we now call the mind. The mind is just another thought, right? So what we're really looking at are patterns of thought. Right? And when we see them that way, we begin to realize that we don't have to shut the mind down. We have to simply start observing thought rather than running with it, right? If I hear the train whistle in the distance and my mind immediately starts associating, right? If I go with it, I'm in the normal state of mind. If I don't go with it, and if I just pull back and just notice that I happen to have noticed that sound and focus my attention back in, I'm meditating. That's the difference. You are consciously shutting down the process of association to keep your attention right here so you don't get absorbed into the story.
So part of it is acknowledging that thought and then sort of releasing it, right?
Yes.
Saying, I'm done, I've thought, I recognized it, I release it. I'm
done with it. I don't need to engage with that thought right now. What I'm doing right now is I'm just watching the thought. And that's where that first bit of separation begins to take place. The first set of a feeling of power, of freedom, because suddenly now your thoughts aren't so demanding anymore. And the end result is that as you become more consistently bring your attention back to what you're feeling, and I bring people's attention back to just my body. How does my body feel?
Okay.
Right? Because the body is like an animal. It does not live in the past or the future. Right? It's right now. Am I hungry? Am I tired?
Right now I'm a little hungry, but that's
right. Right. That's it. And it's immediate. When the hunger's done, the body isn't going, where's my next meal going to come from? I better start saving. I got to go to the grocery store. The mind does that. The mind anticipates the hunger of the future and tries to satisfy it. The body's done. Right?
Is that why in some guided meditations that I've done, they will give you a place, like to be in a place, because that's a concrete something to refer to?
Well, it depends. Some guided meditations are directed to kind of to expose your dependency and projections.
Mm-hmm.
So at which point the guided meditation might be taking you to an ideal place to find out what your reaction is going to be.
Okay.
It can also take you to a place where you will let go of the day, where you will let go of your anxiety. You'll just kind of picture yourself in a really beautiful, the most beautiful place you can imagine. And if that picture becomes strong enough, your body will begin to respond to it as if it is really happening. Because like I said, your body does not live in the past and the future. It's very present.
Right.
And it really can't tell the difference between a thought you're holding and an actual sensory experience you're having. It will react the same way. Anybody that's gotten turned on by picturing the opposite sex or same sex, naked, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The body reacts as if it's there. Oh yeah, yeah. Right. So the body doesn't know it's not there. Right. And that's the beauty of it. The more attention you have on your body, the more you are present. The more you're with your feelings.
The more grounded you are.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing that's really wacky. The mind does not exist in the present. It only exists as a thought about the future or a thought about the past. So the more you are feeling your body, your mind automatically begins to be quiet because there's nothing for it to do now.
It's on vacation.
it's there's really nothing for it to do, and every inner experience you have as you're meditating, you feel something, your mind will immediately kick in because it's got a story for whatever the sensation you have. It's got a story about it. So I just always tell people, you just say, well, thank you very much. I don't need you right now, and bring your attention back. After a while, it becomes easier and easier to not go running off with the stories that the mind has. And as a result, that period of time where there's just kind of this sense of quiet and presence gets bigger and bigger until you can go in and out of it at will. And it actually begins to take over your everyday life so that even when you are engaged in the world, you're still very present. Even though you're having conversations and you're driving your car, you're at work, you're in the meeting, you're giving a presentation, there's still this presence. There's a feelingness that is there. You're not just thinking about what's happening. You're present. And you can feel that in people when they are.
And that's more about learning to, when you have your mind quieted, you're quieting the past and the future. I know that people will tend to run off worrying about the future, or they're reliving some past events. And when you have a quieted mind, you're able to just live in the moment and focus on living in the here and now.
That's absolutely correct. And the whole quiet mind thing, that I really like to put that to rest early on people wanting to practice meditation, because the act of attempting to quiet your mind will make it noisier than ever.
I remember the first time I meditated, my mind was thinking about 1,000 different things. The same thing used to happen when I go to get a massage.
Yes.
I couldn't stop thinking, and I used to get so frustrated until I learned to just relax and just let go of the thought. Like, okay, I let go of the grocery list I'm trying to make. I'm going to let it go.
Yes.
And it's a practice, though. You really have to practice doing it because it's not a natural sort of state for us anymore.
No, it's not. It's not. We have all been trained into following those thoughts. So when the thought pops up, we take it very seriously and we go off with it. The mind becomes quiet and gets noisy, becomes quiet and gets noisy. It's like a wave, right? The mind is like any other natural phenomena. It's never going to go away. And you don't want it to go away. It's very useful. I like my mind. I'm rather fond of it.
Without it would be a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, we all be just kind of sitting there in the corner drooling,
We
right?
the amoebas.
Yes. So the thing is that we've just gotten too dependent on, we've gotten absorbed into it, and we don't and we've begun to think that that's who we are, that I am my thoughts. We begin to believe that our thoughts are reflecting reality, and they're not. They're a tiny little fraction of reality that, that the nervous system has compressed into this little thought because it can't hold all of it, right?
Right.
So, it's like this thought, think of the thought as like an index, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and reality is the book. And we're just reading the index thinking we know what the book's about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tiny little fragment. It's a symbol that represents something else. And we've become detached from what it represents. And the real experience of life is visceral. It's physical. It's emotional. The mind has no feelings. The mind thinks about love. It doesn't actually feel love. It doesn't feel fear. It anticipates fear. It knows situations that should cause fear, but the mind does not feel. The experience,
That's a really good point.
The experience of the richness of life is visceral. And this is what we're missing by becoming so cerebral.
Okay, so taking it back now, we've quieted our mind. We're ready to start meditating. We've had a lot of questions from our listeners around the structure. And I say that word because every time I think about the structure or practice of meditating, it almost makes me cringe because I feel like it's hard to say that it has to be a certain sort of way or process, but everyone's looking for what is that key? How often should I do it? When should I do it? We've had a lot of questions from our listeners about that. So can you talk a little bit about what your daily practice is and what you would recommend for people that are trying to begin the practice of meditation?
Yeah, and they're very, very different. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I get up at 4:00 in the morning, and it's anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. Right?
That is wonderful.
I am not recommending that to anyone.
I don't have that kind of time in my schedule.
Yeah, and how can anybody just sit there not thinking for 2 hours? No, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Right. It isn't empty, and I'm doing stuff, and I'm dealing with stuff energetically. I use it as a time of energetic healing for myself and the world and like. So there's much going on there that is beyond just.
And I want to remind
you,
you've been doing this for 30 years.
30 years, yes.
Please let's all remember, okay? Those of us who are just starting out and have just been doing it for a little while.
It's actually probably, I've been teaching it.
2 hours.
I've been teaching it for that long. I've actually been doing it for more than 40.
Oh, my goodness. So you really started when you were in the cradle.
Yeah.
You really are very self-aware. I like that.
Yeah, I was that's right. I didn't cry when I was born either, so they're gonna write songs about me. Anyway,
so meditating.
Yeah, it's very off-putting to a lot of people, and a little bit frightening when they see, pictures of these yogis in weird positions, and I mean, you look on the internet or some pamphlet, that somebody, from some yoga center, and they got the yoga instructor that's showing you the most pretzeled up, difficult position you could possibly imagine, so that they can show off what a great yogi they are, right?
Exactly.
And it's so off-putting to the rest of the world. It's like, I can't do that. And look, I can't do that. I cannot sit.
Exactly. Totally intimidating.
I can't sit in a lotus position. I will never be able. Maybe next life I'll get myself a nice, a little bigger body, a little leaner body, one with the hamstrings aren't so damn tight, right? But in this body, lotus, out of the question.
You're not a pretzel in this life.
Right? No, this body doesn't do that. There really is no position you need to sit in. There's just the only caveat I put that is that I don't recommend people lay down unless they're really wide awake.
Okay.
Because
why is that?
Laying down is a signal to the body it's time to go to sleep. So there's a tendency as you begin to get quiet to go slip right past the meditative state into sleep.
Okay.
Right? that's why I don't recommend that. I also don't recommend just kind of, leaning back and stuff like that. The idea is that, but of course, if you do, I have. I've laid down, I've, sat on the side, I've been, the position doesn't matter because it's the internal attention that is the actual heart and soul of meditation. Now, having said that, there are certain positions that are more conducive. The traditional one that everybody sees with your legs crossed, right, and your back straight, right? The reason that works is because when your back is straight, it has the least interference with your breathing, and it allows you to get into a deep state without falling asleep. The body doesn't want to fall asleep when you're in that state, unless you're really tired.
Okay.
That's why people do it. Now, you can do that sitting in a chair, right? Just and just kind of sit up in the chair. You can do that sitting on a couch. You can do that sitting on the floor on a cushion. The idea is just be comfortable. Be in a position where you can just let your shoulders hang, where you can let your head is centered on your neck, so you're not having to strain to hold it up. You're just letting everything relax. The only place where there might be just a little bit of tension is down at your lower back, which is just holding you upright. And if you do it long enough, those muscles become strong and used to it, and you don't even think about it anymore. Right? I mean, I find myself when I'm sitting and meditating, I sit down and I'm just there in that position. It's perfectly straight. But my muscles, they know to go there now.
And do you use the same position every time? Is that why your body has become so trained to it?
Most of the time, but not all the time.
Okay.
I don't take anything as being a law, because the important and the reason why is I recommend there are better practices than others. But the last thing I want is somebody not doing it because they think they have to go through all the stuff. They have to sit there for a half an hour. They have to chant Om, right?
Yeah.
The idea is that you're giving yourself a period of time when you're going to put your attention on yourself. It's very self-honoring. You're going to simply turn inside without an agenda to simply feel what's going on with you without trying to change it or fix it. Just observe it. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, I know people use meditation for purposes. I want to get enlightened. I want to lose stress. I want to help activate the law of attraction.
Exactly.
The moment you start doing that, it's very, very difficult to quiet your mind, because your mind is what it is. It is what focuses on results. Results are always in the future, aren't they?
Yes. Yes, so they are.
Every attempt to focus your attention on what am I getting out of this is going off into the future. The real question is, what's happening with me right now? It's hot, I'm cold, I'm uncomfortable. This is, I hear these sounds. It's too warm, it's too hot, it's too cold, right? I'm hungry, my stomach's gurgling, right? And if you just say, okay, that's what's happening right now, and just feel it, without having a big objective in mind, you're in meditation. Now, the technique of sitting, of breathing correctly from your diaphragm, taking deeper breaths to relax the body, which signals the body that you can let go of anxiety, you can let go of tension and the like, has enormous health effects. And I recommend, people can do it for that reason. Just to, if you learn to breathe correctly, you will have less stress in your life. Period. End of story.
So tell us a little bit more about that, because I've read that someplace before too, that breathing has a lot to do with our stress, helping to eliminate stress, just that cortisol reaction that we get.
Well, right, because when we feel threatened, the heart rate and the breath rate speed up, and the breath has to speed up because it's going to need to put more oxygen into the bloodstream for the muscles, because you've activated the fight or flight. right?
Okay.
And so because that's been activated, the body is preparing to either fight or to run, which means it's shutting down the higher functions, which is why when you're stressed, you find out you just can't concentrate. Right,
Yes.
because your body doesn't want to. The only thing your body's concentrated on is getting your ass out of there. Right? And you don't need to be thinking when you're doing that. Right, so it
Right.
shuts that stuff down. Anything that's unnecessary, depending on the level of stress, of the level of threat, in increasing amounts of stuff get shut down. Activate the muscles, fill them full of blood, fill the bloodstream full of oxygen, shut down digestion. It shuts all of it down, because it's got to focus all its attention on survival. So when stress is simply a low level activating of the fight and flight mechanism. And so your breathing speeds up. And also, a lot of people simply breathe more shallow. They breathe from their chests, right? These days nobody wants to have a little pot belly, right? But the reality is that the little pot belly is the thing making the breath happen. Your chest doesn't breathe. It's the diaphragm below the rib cage that is the little accordion that's sucking in the air. And as it sucks, it fills from the bottom up until your chest breathes. I actually practice a form of breathing from the Taoists where you breathe into your back. My chest doesn't move. I breathe into my back.
Oh, wow. Well,
It's kind of strange, but people put my hand on the back.
Seems really counterintuitive. Yeah.
Yes, it was when I learned it, but then I find it actually helps solidify the posture. I feel much more grounded that way. And if I really need a lot of air, then I can expand it even further, and I can open up the chest.
Okay, so we've talked about breathing, right?
Yep.
We've talked about, go ahead.
Yeah, and so what you're going to do, just to finish the thought about stress, that when you consciously slow your breath down, it tells the body, hey, it's cool, we're not in danger. And it goes, oh, all right. And it fires up the higher functions. It lets the blood go other places than your muscles. It signifies everything's okay. Muscles relax, the body relaxes, and it goes into a state of rest, a state of calm. That's why breathing is so powerful, which means we need to learn to breathe more deeply and more slowly. And when we learn how to do that consciously, we can very quickly alleviate stress. Can alleviate stage fright, believe it or not.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, because stage fright is the same thing. It's the fight or flight mechanism. And if you notice when you get afraid, just notice your breath. The next time you get afraid, you're going to be nervous, or just notice what your breath is doing, and you'll realize that you're going. That's when you get really scared. People hyperventilate. That's why.
Yeah.
Because the breathing has become so shallow that they're not getting enough oxygen, or they're over-oxygenating themselves because it's being held in too long.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So the next time I get stressed, I'm going to try my breathing technique. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So going back to, we touched briefly about different styles of meditation. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? I know that there are guided meditations versus self-guided meditations. And last week we even talked about all of the different types of technologies that can be woven into meditation. So can you just talk for a few minutes about the different styles?
Yeah.
I know there are a lot, but
there are.
Try to highlight some of the more common ones.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yes, there's mindfulness meditation, compassion meditation. There's meditation on objects, meditation on death, staring at a candle, counting your breaths, vipassana, Zen, shikantaza. The list goes on and on and on, and they each have a certain kind of function. And they each have a certain kind of vibe about them. And
Okay.
I would recommend that when people are starting, first thing to do is just start with your breath and observe your mind and seek out guided meditations, especially people in the West, because we have such active minds in the West. We are so much oriented towards thinking in the West that if you have, that's why I put music behind in all of my meditations, because and I write the music in such a way that it can distract enough without engaging somebody in a melody and in a music. I don't want somebody sitting there on the meditation thing tapping their foot. We're not laying down a groove.
Really, we're not going to disco during the meditation.
We're not. Yeah, we're not going to get up and boogie down. Right? So I put that there as a way of, once again, communicating to the system. And when I also do it, it's always in the same key. I don't change keys either, because there's a tendency of the body to harmonize and resonate with a certain pitch. So if you just leave the whole thing in one key, and you'll hear that in most of my meditations, the sustained, it's always there, this one sound, and it's always there. And that's on purpose, because the body physically responds to that and tends to resonate with it. And again, begins to allow everything to slow down to the point where you can begin to get some control. And then the voice in a guided meditation is there to help you do for yourself to help you do what you can't do for yourself yet.
Okay.
Most people, even with the music, what they're going to do is their mind's immediately going to kick off. So the voice, and thanks to technology and these headphones and stuff, I can be the voice in your head, can continually draw your attention back to what you're feeling. Continually draw your attention back. And every one of the meditations, I always leave a gap of a couple minutes for people to try it themselves. Because the object, of course, is to be able to try it yourself. So guided meditations are a great way to do it. Another way that people will start is using is counting the breaths. And
tell us how that works.
Well, you simply remember you're slowing your breath down, and you can even it's oftentimes if you really have kind of the patience and the discipline for this, you can get some little timer on your iPod or your iPhone or iPad or something, or your Android, that can just ring every 5 seconds. And so you can become very rhythmic. You breathe in for 5 seconds, you breathe out for 5 seconds. Now, a good way to start if you don't have the timer is to just count. Just breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Right? And you'll find that you can keep up the counting that way. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let your breath go in rhythm with the way you're counting. And after a while, you'll learn to slow it down a little bit and naturally slow your breath down. Then when you get to the point where you can actually, kind of feel the rhythm of your breath, you simply count the breath. 1, 2. Now, most people usually realize 15 minutes later that they didn't even make it to 3. And
they're just off.
And their mind, and they go, what number was it? And in meditation, you just go, oh, okay, I lost count, and just start over.
Yeah.
And the whole point is now, this is boring, okay? I don't recommend it all the time because it can be boring. If you want the discipline of it, it's great. Right? But again, there's still a bit of an object to it. There's a lot of different courses you can take. I don't recommend the meditation in yoga classes, because really all it is just kind of a quieting at the end of the class. Yoga is about the activity, and most of them don't actually spend a half an hour in a meditation after the class. The class goes for an hour or something, and then they have a little 5-minute thing, and then they're done. Find if there's like a Zen sitting group nearby, or some kind of a Buddhist place nearby. A lot of the New Thought churches, Unity and Science of Mind and the like, will have meditation classes. It's very helpful to actually meditate with other people.
And why is that? Just the sense, the energy that's created when
Yeah,
you're in a group? Okay.
yeah, the energy, the support. When you go somewhere to sit and meditate, there's a sense of resignation to it when you get out of your normal environment, right? When you're sitting at home and you're sitting there, say, "Oh, gee, oh God, I'll do this, and then I'll come back and sit down and meditate." Right?
It's like going to work out. Like it's easier to go work out at the gym or the health club, right, than to work out at home. You have all
Yes.
sorts of excuses why not to do it.
Yeah, because it's a practice, it's a discipline, it's the kind of thing that you have to do with regularity. Um, and there's a really great course if you want to look it up called Vipassana by S. Gurki. God, I can never remember the guy's name. And if you really want to be serious about it, it's 10 days, a 10-day training in Vipassana. It's free everywhere you go. It's 10 days. It's free. You have to pay for your food, but at the end, if you want to donate something, you can. It's been that way forever. It's a great way for Vipassana. Vipassana was the meditation that the Buddha practiced.
Okay.
Right, so it comes highly recommended, and obviously it's old.
A little.
It's been around for a long time, but like I said, meditations, guided meditations, meditation recordings. The thing about most of the meditation recordings is that they are oriented around having an objective. Right? I'm meditating on having more money. I'm meditating on having better relationships. I'm meditating on having better health. That's not really meditation. That's a focusing of healing energy, and I recommend it, but I like to make it clear that that's not meditation. Meditation is self-inquiry. It's about being with yourself. It's not about trying to fix things. It's about trying to find the you that doesn't need to be fixed.
Okay, so that I feel like is a big teaching moment for everybody, because I know I was one of those people that felt like meditation had to have a purpose. So again, you want to restate that we do not, meditation is really about introspection, right?
Yeah. Yes,
and being aware of your body and yourself and your state of being at that moment.
Yes, indeed. The techniques of meditation, the effective concentration, the control you develop over the mind and the breath and the autonomic nervous system are very useful in self-help and self-development and law of attraction work. It's very, very useful, but that's not its main purpose, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit like, the techniques of film can be used to make a commercial, or they can be made to make a movie that's all about entertainment, or they can be made to make a movie that's all about delivering really valuable information, or just pure art, right? Mm-hmm. Same techniques, right? It's how they're used, though, that determines which is the highest and most appropriate. Real meditation is deeply, that's why it's connected so deeply with spirituality. It doesn't have to be. You can have, therapeutic, medicinal meditation purely for stress relief, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Mm-hmm. But the higher forms of meditation are a means of spiritual exploration. You're trying to find the answer to the big questions, and eventually, the techniques and the practice of meditation blends with the deep spiritual desire to know what is real and what is really true, and the conviction that the answer to those questions doesn't lie outside, it lies inside somewhere. And meditation becomes the mechanism by which you get to those deep answers. And you can pose very powerful spiritual questions during meditation. It's not just sitting there always observing. Right? Once you can observe, once you can have experience, you can pose the questions, who am I? What is real? What is God? What's the truth? Right? And when you've practiced the meditation, your mind doesn't answer the question. Something else does, and that's where you find the real juice.
Well, and I'm hoping that our listeners are listening to the whole process of what you need to do to quiet your mind to get to that point so that they can make this ongoing practice for themselves. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, and I just want to remind everybody, *6 if you have a question for G about meditation. It's a great opportunity to ask somebody who's been practicing for quite a while. So going back to how often, we didn't really talk about that, how often should someone that's new to meditation meditate?
When I created the Just Allow It minis, I recognized that, people could sit down for an hour, but probably about 15 seconds they're actually meditating. The rest of the time they're trying to. Which is why I created mini meditations.
Yeah.
It's about the quality of the experience, right? If you're somebody who is really dedicated to this is a major part of your spiritual practice, you're really heading down that path, then I would recommend starting with 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening.
Okay.
If you can only do 10, do 10. If you can only do 3, do 3, right? Like anything else, like learning to play an instrument or practice a sport, you practice at a certain time of the day, right? They've just found that you master skills quicker if there's a regularity about the repetition, right? If you always sit down at 8 o'clock in the morning to practice the piano, you're going to learn faster than if you do 8 o'clock one day and 12:30 the next, right?
Sure.
It's just part of how the body adapts most quickly to the new behavior you want it to have. So being consistent with that. The other part about it is if you do a few minutes first thing in the morning, the whole tenor of your day is different, right? You're actually setting you're kind of setting the vibrational level for the day, and then during the day it becomes a matter of reminding yourself, let me get back to myself for a second, right? Because we're so engaged in what we're doing, we find ourselves stressed out, and it's almost it's a way of life. We find ourselves in the middle of the stress, and then we push ourselves more, because when you get into stress, your capacity goes down a little bit. So you push yourself harder to try to make up for the fact that your capacity has been diminished a bit. That's a moment where you can take a minute and just go, breathe. Just breathe for a second. Just focus your attention inside and just notice what you're feeling. Notice how stress feels, that it's not comfortable, that it's unpleasant. But just don't try to run away from it. Just be with it for a second. Be present with it. Breathe. And again, honor yourself. You can do that, for 30 seconds, and it will have an impact. And when it becomes something you can do for 30 seconds or a minute or a couple of minutes, suddenly it doesn't seem so hard to fit it into your day.
Well, and it seems like it's a practice then that you can pull out at times during the day, as you said, when you're starting to feel stressed or overwhelmed.
Right. Exactly so. And as a way of just making your life better, that's the way to do it. It's later on, if you become serious about it as a spiritual practice, you just become more disciplined, and you invest more into it.
So we're talking about the practice of meditation, and how active we all are, and how busy our schedules are, and how do we fit it in. I happen to know that you have a meditation app that's going to be released next week. Do you think you can fill us in and give us the scoop about your meditation and when it's going to be available and how we can get it?
Yes, absolutely. I Some of the people are familiar with the mini meditations, with the Just Allow It mini meditations. Well, I took them and I completely redid it. I redid the music, I re-recorded the voice, and I added in the brainwave technology from Don McCarty that we interviewed last week, and we put it into the form of an app so that you can control the amount of voice or the amount of music. Right, so you have some control over, because I've heard people saying, "Can I have less music? I want to hear your voice more." Other people saying, could I just listen to the music?"
Oh, that's really cool.
So there's a little slider on it, and you can just put your finger and make it all voice or all music and anywhere in between to mix it the way you want.
That is great.
Then we also have a little wheel that's got 7 different environment sounds. So you can have the forest at nighttime, you can have a rainstorm, you can have the ocean surf, you can have a babbling brook, if you like environmental sounds. Some people like environmental sounds, some people don't. So you could have nothing but environmental sounds and my voice. Or you could have nothing but music and environmental sounds. And you could actually make up your own affirmations. You could use it as an affirmation meditation as well. But there are 12 meditations on it. It's going to sell for $4.99. $4.99, not $499. There's 12 different meditations, and I just picked different subjects. One's called Let Go of Control. Another's called Just Be Here. Another one's called Just Breathe. Another one's called There'll Be a Solution Later. And they're all designed to within a very short period of time. I think the longest one is like 3.5 minutes. The shortest one's 2.5 minutes. To basically center you in the middle of the day. You could do it on a break. You could do it on the way to work. You could do it, sitting in your car before you went into work. Right, I don't recommend it doing while you're driving, or operating, blenders. Right, I mean, not a good idea. Just give yourself time to be with it. And if you we've just submitted it to Apple. We haven't heard back from them yet. It could be a week before Apple is ready for it, has released it to the public. So sometime in the beginning of next week, it should be available. Just if you just go to the iTunes store or the App Store on your device and you can put in GP Walsh, you could put in Just Allow It, you could put in Mini Meditations, and you'll find it. It's also available on the Android. You can go to the Google Store, you can go to Amazon.com, or you can just go to the places where the Android apps are. And again, same thing. Mini Meditations, Just Allow It, GP Walsh, and you'll find it and be able to download it. So
exciting! I love the idea of being able to have your meditations with you. That's going to be invaluable for those of us who are always on the go.
And short. I did that on purpose. I have meditations that go on for a half hour. Guided meditations that I've done. The I Am Money that we give away as the free gift for this month is 15 minutes long, which is too long for a lot of people at work.
Exactly.
During the day. And it's too long for somebody who's just starting. 3 minutes? Can you give me 3 minutes?
Yeah, everybody has 3 minutes in their day, right?
Everybody can find 3 minutes to take care of themselves. And I really wish people would just see it in those terms, right? Really look around. We live in a world that is very divorced from nature. Our bodies were not designed to live in the world that we have created, and they have not adapted to it yet. Change happens at a rate that is just mind-numbing, right? But the body doesn't change that fast. The body cannot keep up with the amount of change that we experience in our life, which means that it is in a constant state of stress because it knows it's not functioning correctly within the environment. Mm-hmm. So we have to give it opportunities to say, it's okay, we're cool, relax for a minute, right? Nothing's going to change for the next 2 minutes. You're all right. We need to communicate that to it. And you do that by, just sitting with your back straight, closing your eyes, letting yourself breathe, just learning how to relax. In an upcoming, some upcoming apps and meditations, I'm going to just be teaching how to relax, how to tell your body it's okay, it's time to relax.
Listen, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you to my wonderful guests. Gee, I appreciate you sharing all this.
Thank you. I hope you have me back sometime. Thanks.
Will you be happy? I would love to have you back on the show sometime. So if you'd like to hear more about our conversations, to see any of our archive shows, please go to our website, www.loa20.com. Don't forget to go to our website and get your free download this month, our I Am Money meditation. Again, just visit our website, click on the green button in the right-hand corner, and get your free download. It's a wonderful meditation that G put together using some multiple techniques to allow the possibility of wealth. And I just want to let everybody know we have a great guest next week. He's Barnett Bain, who is creating a dramatic feature film based on a book by Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now. Everybody knows that book. Eckhart's book is titled Milton's Secret. It's about a stressed-out 11-year-old boy who has a transformational interaction with his grandfather. It's going to be a great opportunity to hear Barnett talk about this project as it's just starting to get off the ground. I believe they're finishing writing the script and they're going to begin filming. It's such an exciting project. I can't wait to have him on.
And he's working with Eckhart Tolle on it, and I think Peter Fonda is going to be in the movie. And for those who don't know Barnett Bain, you should look him up. He did one of my favorite movies, What Dreams May Come, with Robin Williams. He's a serious movie producer.
Major producer, yeah. A serious producer.
Yes, he really is, and a great guy. I've had the pleasure to meet him.
Yeah, so join us next week, guys. And until then, we hope you'll come back for more Straight Talk. Thank you.